Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to this week's episode of Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matt Peverell and I'm joined by my co-host as always, Mark Davison. Marky D, you're here with Matty P. What's going on, mate?
Not too much down under, really. Yet again, it's is it 9 a.m. It's now it's sunny. The rain has disappeared, which is great. How are you doing? How are you doing past Sydney way?
Yeah, mate, the rain started to clear up about a day ago, which is good. I've heard it's coming back. So for anyone out there, we've had really bad rain. I think in my professional work, I was outside of BTSC. I had one client over in Canada, and they were saying they'd heard about some of the severe floods that we were having in our state of New South Wales that Mark and I are sort of at either ends of. Was kind of both an hour-ish drive from Sydney either way. So yeah, it's from that perspective, it's nice to see the sun out. It's been a busy week. My dog seems to have a personality on the show now. So for everyone out there, we got the sex this week. So hopefully there's not too much more barking during the show, but it'll be what it'll be. But yeah, it's been a massive week in the NFL. It's been a massive week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mark, it has felt like it's going really slowly. And then what do you know, woke up this morning and you and I are back on our show. So it's awesome to be joining everyone. You know, we've got some awesome people in the live chat as always. Double HH, for Rhino Tools there, Jared Devil, Kathy Forrard, Snowman's in there. We're getting the whole gang together as Super Steelers as well. So, you know, as we always say, there's no point, Michael O'Malley too, but there's no point us doing this show if you guys can't be a part of it. So it's awesome to have you guys all here. Mark, I mean, there's so much that's going on this week. Where do we start? How are you feeling about the week with all the different things that have come out?
I tell you where we start. I think we start with Felicia making the big ball on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I just want to give her a big shout out because I've known myself when I made Steeler Nation Unite, it was one of the best feelings I ever had. When I wrote my little article for them, and I was a fan favorite for the week. And I almost got chosen to be top fan in one of their programs. I can never win anything in Australia, guys. When we do competitions, we can't win. We're not allowed to. We're not part of the 50 states, which, you know, but we still participate anyway. So, massive shout out to Felicia for being on the air and talking to Rooney. Like that would honestly make anyone's day. And I know for sure it would make her day. And you can tell by the way what she was talking. But in regards to like the Steelers, like, yeah, it's been like I said, it's so weird. It's a slow week, big week. I woke up this morning and just thought, wow, like we've lost a lot of people, haven't we?
Yeah,
like
it's interesting.
McDonald, Pouncey, Hilton, Dupre, Alawalu, you name it. We lost a lot of people.
Well, and before we go into that one there as well, I want to bring up Chad Landsman. I think Chad's the Facebook listener MVP at the moment in terms of being in the live chat. He's in there each week. So I wanted to give him a shout out there. And, you know, a lot of the different live chats come from people on the YouTube side, which is fantastic. But I want to give a bit of a shout out there to Chad. So thank you. Also quickly, just before we get deep into Steelers, thanks Snowman there in terms of from the YouTube side. He says prayers go out to people of Australia. I think the one interesting take I saw, and this is a bit of a sling and the slang from a more charity perspective, but like, or community concern perspective is when you have a bushfire, which Australia is known for having, you come back to your home if you've had it and everything's burnt down and you have that grief of loss. But when people suffer from floods, which is what we're seeing on our TV, and people in the US would know this too, because, I mean, floods happen around the world, but you have to clear everything out that's moldy and yucky and wet. And it's we've been hearing that it's potentially can be just as traumatic, if not worse, because you've got to actually go through everything. And that's quite a heartbreaking. It draws the process out. So, yeah, definitely our thoughts are with all of our fellow countrymen. But going into it, Mark, you're exactly right there on players. Like, we've lost a few guys. And I said in the explanation of this show, and it'll be there in the article for the podcast side as well. But since March, you know, we knew that we had the 20 or so free agents and exclusive rights free agents. In March, we've lost 3-4 guys. We've brought in 13. Before that, we, in February lost Maurkice Pouncey, and then in January, Vance retired. And this goes into the heart of today's title as well, which is Steeler fans get ready for a different 2021. Because not only is this going to be a very different team that takes the field, there's differences that we're going to be doing on defense. There's differences in terms of offense. Rooney this week talked about getting the run right, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means in the draft part of today's show, which will be in part 2. But this goes back to it. It does feel like a different team. And even if you think about Juju Smith-Schuster, who we talked about last week, for example, you bring back Juju, that's different to what we all expected for 2021. That creates a difference there in what you do. I mean, Jeffrey Benedict has talked at lengths at this, whether it's through the article side, the podcast that he's on when he's featured on ours, definitely in the Slack channels. He's talked about if you use Juju right and you do things deep and and in the slot even, that will change. He can play a different role in the Matt Canada offense. So when I look at that, you look at a guy like Tyler Simmons. They went to a pro day this week and they picked up a guy that went, undrafted. I mean, these are the differences. You look at Miles Killebrew. We've gotten younger there in the special teams side instead of Jordan Dangerfield. Chris Wormley comes back and obviously perhaps he can get an expanded role. It's just we're doing some different things. But Mark, my question for you is, out of all these 13 guys that we've signed in March, right, all the 13, who's the one that's A, most surprised you? So I guess it's a two-part question. And B, who are you hoping will have a bigger impact than what fans might expect?
Firstly, out of these 13 blokes, and you just went into it, it almost comes to my mind, who are they? I don't know who they are. And I say that lightly. Like, I understand that Wormley come from the Ravens. Killebrew was from the Lions. I saw him back when I was watching Juju highlights. That big game he had, the Killebrew was in there. But I think the big transition of losing all these fan favorites like Dupre and McDonald, Pouncey, and all these great guys, and then we have a new set of blokes coming like 13. I didn't even realize it was 13. That seems like a lot of free agents, but a lot of them are signing 1-year deals. But to answer your question, I think the biggest one, I think a lot of people would agree with me, would be probably Marsh, Cassius Marsh. I didn't think he was going to make
the Pokemon King.
Look,
or as Jeff likes to say, the Pokemon King.
Yeah, Pokemon. Like, he could be a good player.
No, we love you, Jeff. We love you, Jeff. We're just Pokemon was when Mark and I were kids when the Pokemon thing with the craze happened, and and my mom used to call it Pokemon, and I'm like, that's not what it is. It's just Pokemon.
Well, we might be with our accent there. We might be on the bottom for the USA accent. I'm not too sure. I'd like to have a good crack at it when I have one of the other blokes on. But yeah, with Marsh, I thought a lot of guys thought he was going to go. I didn't think he was going to stick around, and he does that like Capoeira kind of kick. We know what he showed up in the Browns game for the playoff. He didn't do anything. So that to me was a bit of a surprise. Why do you bring him in? Do you need him on special teams? Is he an ace there? To the next point, I think the guy that I want to see succeed is probably the guy last year that I bagged out a little bit, and I know you did as well. It's probably Wormley. If he's going to play, is Wormley playing nose tackle? Or is he playing defensive end?
Yeah, so I'm just reading up HH's comment. I know we're a bit in the live chat today, but we're not joking about Pokemon. I mean, I've got Nintendo Switch. I bought the last 3 new Pokemon games, right? I'm turning 30 in 6 weeks' time, and I'm playing Pokemon. So we're not joking about that. We're just mucking around with the accents. But yeah, in terms of like Wormley, I think you're going to see him more in that defensive end. And I think when you look at that from nose tackle position, I think we're looking at an Isaiah Buggs situation or a Carlos Davis, Bad's son. You might even be looking, I mean, there's guys like Jaron Reed that have become available. Like, who knows? I saw a mock draft that had the Steelers drafting, and I'm going to have a mental blank. I think his first name's Levi. Washington defensive tackle in the 2nd round on NFL.com. I saw that yesterday. I think that'd be a little bit high for the Steelers, but it wouldn't surprise me if someone leaves a really good defensive tackle on the board. I mean, why wouldn't you do it? But I think where Wormley makes sense is a lot of the sub package stuff, spelling different guys. Like we got an awesome amount of performance from Tuitt last year. Apart from the COVID, we would have got a full season out of him. It was a career year in terms of numbers, and I think he had 11 sacks and what have you. Hayward's, whilst we're hoping he can stay around for, 3 or 4 more seasons now, he's someone that you don't want to have to, can't play every snap. So if we've got a guy like Wormley who knows the system, I thought he came on and toward the end of the year when we saw a bit more of him, I thought he did some good things. Even if it's about depth, the top teams will have depth, rest players within games, not necessarily for full games. That's what we want from the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's cheap, knows the system. He's not an unproven draft pick. So for me, I didn't mind that signing.
Yeah, well, neither did I. But I just think the big one would Marsh and players like that. Another big one I think was bringing in Killebrew, going to be a special teams guy. And I've got the fan of me. I got a soft spot for Dangerfield. Now, all I want to see is those two blokes on the field together, and it may not happen. But you got two great names, Dangerfield, Killebrew. Imagine that for a duo tackle, like two hard hitting. I think they both play safety. So with a player like that coming in, I'm starting to understand a bit of the business side. If someone like him comes in, he fills that certain role that another player used to do, and that means maybe the other player might be on the way out. So Dangerfield's still not signed yet. A lot of things like that have happened, but it is a huge transition year, like losing all these stars. But then like come preseason week 1, we're going to have favorites again. Someone's going to make plays, do things, and then it's going to kick you in a Steeler drive and get new people into your mind. And you won't necessarily forget about Bud Dupre, but there'll be other guys to fill that role.
Well, that's a good point that you make there, Mark. And this just said goes back to the title, where there's new opportunities that are going to open up. There are new players that are going to step up. I always use the example of an Alex Highsmith, right? Highsmith, we did not expect to demand that amount of play out of Highsmith in year 1. Bud Dupre goes down. Even for the critics out there, yes, Highsmith's run defense still needs a bit of work. But the performance that we got out of him, because he got an opportunity. And it's one of these things that I'm always really interested when you look back. It's very hard to do it you can't really look forward on it, but because you don't know what's going to happen. But when you look back and you work out, were guys that you drafted given a chance to prove themselves, right? Now, 4th round and below, I get their projects. They've got to show up. It's injuries going to get them in. But at the end of the day, if you're going to invest somewhere, particularly in the 1st and 2nd round, depending on how high you're picking in the 3rd round, at some stage, you've got to win, but you've got to give those guys a shot to develop. Because if you're always sitting them on the back, only letting the proven guys play, when something goes down, then you're going to have a problem because you've got no experience there. So, I'm interested to see, and I think Double HH has brought it up in the live chat. If there's ever a season we need an amazing draft class, it's this year, 100%. Last year we had 3 guys. We didn't have a 1st round pick, and we had 3 guys that in a redraft were in the top 32 1st round picks. If you could get that out of this draft, and this is what I said, I think in last week's show, or I might have said it on War Room this week. Kevin Colbert, is apparently retiring after the 2022 draft. If you don't think he's going to try and set the team up for success with this draft, he knows he's got his make his mark. Then this is the draft he's going to try and look to do it, even more so than ever. So, let's hope they can pull it off. Killebrew is an interesting one you say there, Mark. I feel like Dangerfield's getting a bit old. You can't put him on a practice squad. Therefore, that creates a few headaches for you there. I get the fan side of it. Obviously, I think we had him on BTSC as well. So, it is sad to see him go from that perspective. But again, if no one picks him up, is he someone that we pull in if we get an injury? They're the sorts of guys. I always think about this. Football's a moving business. We're not even in training camp yet. There's always a few injuries. It's, again, why you got to expect something different in 2021.
Well, think about it. It never really I always talk this about my dad, and he's so surprised with the NFL, and I guess a lot of codes do it as well, but the NFL, it never stops. You go into the season, you go, who's going to win the Super Bowl? You go all the way through it, and you get to the winner, and then the day after the Super Bowl, they say, who's going to win next year? It never, ever stops. So it is like a moving train. It's awesome. It's great to be a part of, great to be contributor and talk Steelers football like we have the chance to do upside down. But yeah, that's the thing. I think these guys coming in, it really does feel like, and it's going to be a new year. The big thing I think with all the COVID stuff too, I think I really want to see fans back in the stands. I think there is a home field advantage with fans in the stands. I think the players get a kick out of that. So it'd be awesome to see fans in the stands, Roethlisberger back there again, maybe a new running back, a new defense. Maybe we're not going to blitz off the edge anymore with Hilton. and just see how this, our expectations this year. I think as Steelers fans of Super Bowl, but the media landscape is you're terrible. You're not going to win anything. The Browns are better than you, so that's going to be interesting. Outlook for the season. Will we compete with the Browns? And we went 5-1 last year in the division, correct? We lost to the salty Bengals. So there's still opportunity for us to
no,
be
4-2, 4-2, because we lost to the Browns because Mason lost to the Browns.
That's right. Yeah, 4-2. But yeah, we still have a chance to win that division. It is a really, really big transition year, I think, and we have the same time like we said last week. It's like, but we still have Big Ben. We're hanging on to him, but we've got all these new players coming in. So many people are signing 1-year deals like Ray, Juju. So I think like heading into the draft, we can get some good players. And I'm not a draft expert. I'm far from it. I just follow what Shefty says because he gave me a nod in Houston one year when I saw him there. And I think he's a great analyst. So I follow what he says. And that's all I really need to know because there's so many. Even now, Mel Kiper Jr.'s got mock draft 3.0 and he's got about six quarterbacks going in the first.
Mate, he never gets that right. I will say I've watched a few different shows on YouTube about. I wanted to delve deep into this whole Mac Jones thing, and I had a bit of a listen. And people are sort of saying Mac Jones, and as I said to everyone, if Steelers people at 24, I'm going to be going on about it for a year, so you probably tune out of anything I say going forward. So you'll have to join Steelers Touchdown Under just to listen to Mark. But apparently he's a better athlete than what a lot of people are saying, and his knowledge of the game, and his ability to process playbooks makes him a much better performer at the quarterback position than what most people realize. So I think that is interesting. He may go higher than what people are expecting. Just going back to the final thing about free agents, and I know I have banged this drum so bloody hard over the last couple of weeks, both on War Room, with Jeffrey, on Twitter, on the Slack channel with the BTSC guys, that I cannot understand with Pouncey retiring. Yes, you're bringing BJ Finney, but Austin Blythe from the LA Rams, 47 out of 48 games, took him to a Super Bowl. Great, creating holes, in the run game, particularly from a zone run perspective. Made the holes for Todd Gurley, can play guard, is still sitting there in free agency, and we're hoping that JC Hassenauer and BJ Finney are the answer. I can't understand it. The guy's got to be worth $3 million this year. The cap situation right now is 8.96 free. We need about $8 million to sign our free agents. There's, you can cut Canada, you can cut a couple of other guys, you can do a couple of restructures. You've easily got that money. How the hell have we not signed this guy yet?
Maybe Austin Blythe doesn't like flying. Have you thought about that? Isn't he's stuck on the West Coast? Maybe he doesn't want to fly to Pittsburgh and have a go.
Well, with how long we've waited, he probably could have driven there by now. Could have rode a bloody horse, mate. He could have got James Washington could have got him on the horse, and they could have rode the whole way. I don't understand. It's ridiculous. It's got to change. And because the question is, and we will get into draft. We want to move on to the question mark segment, but we'll get on to draft in part 2. But there's the centers there don't give you a lot of confidence, and we're going to end up spending too high a pick on them. But anyway, Mark, I've done a lot of talking. Your turn. It's the return to the question mark segment.
Are we going to jump right into it now?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're flying through this one here. Okay, guys. So in previous podcasts, we've done like a question mark segment where I bring up 3 questions for Matty, and all I really do is I choose a random number generator, and we go through the Steelers jersey numbers, and then whoever we get, we talk about their past 2020, what their future will be. And my favorite question: will they be? Can they apply for the Hall of Fame? Will they be in the Hall of Fame coming up? So now we have got a few numbers that in the past. So if I do get one of those, I'll run over them and we'll choose somebody else. Yep. But let's see who we get first.
Righto.
Now, right away,
let's kick it off, mate.
Right away, we did say in the pre-room, the steel behind the steel curtain room. We said we wouldn't do players that weren't here. Now, I got 48. We have to do 48. And this is no joke. I just got Bud Dupre. Can he count as our first one?
Isn't that number going to be Zaven Collins' number when he signs for the Pittsburgh Steelers in round 1?
You know what? I reckon we should. I think we should talk about
we'll
it.
go Bud.
He's still a legacy and legend.
Yeah.
So overall, before Bud got injured, what do you think of Bud's 2020?
2020, I think he was there for another career year. I think, Bud was doing terrifically well. I think he had it was 10 sacks off the top of my head. I didn't bring that up. But in terms of Bud's performance, I think the easiest way to talk about Bud's performance is 2020 is to talk about what happened when he wasn't there. I think the team was able to do a few different things and manage Devin Bush not being there. Bud was just a hit too many. That coupled with the timing of all the COVID, impacts on the schedule and what have you, in some ways, and it's not his fault in any way, shape, or form, but I feel like it derailed the team a little bit, to be honest. I think it pushed them off the tracks. I think there were a few things teetering up to it, and I think that just took it over as well. I mean, obviously, Pouncey having to be out as well, and Hassenauer having to play, and we go back to Jeffrey Benedict's article where Hassenauer gets destroyed. I think Bud's injury, combined with Bush, combined with Pouncey, combined with COVID, is the perfect equation for the Steelers, just the season just falling to nothing.
Yeah. For myself, with Bud in the 2020, it comes down to me, his overall play was, the way I look at it is in a visual representation, is when he hit Drew Lock. When he nailed Drew Lock to the ground and broke his collarbone or whatever he broke, that was Bud. That was Bud to me. Now, I'm going to spin this question a little bit differently. So, for the future of this player, for the future of Bud, how does his impact with the Titans affect the Steelers? Are they going to be in our way like the Chiefs are in our way now? Is the Titans a team where if Bud's on the defense, he's going to be trouble and we can't get past him? What do you think how he's going to affect us if we verse him in the playoffs?
All right, so I'm going to go out and say something, and Jeffrey Bendick will blow me up for it. Other people will too. Bud had a good couple of years, and I know it takes time for people to progress. I'm not saying that. It doesn't matter what job you do, in even professional lines of work, even if you're working a casual job, it might take you 3 weeks, it might take you 6 weeks, so it might take you 6 months, whatever. So I'm not discounting that. But I mean, Bud, we got to be real here. But it took a while for Bud to come on, right? And he came on in the Steelers system with people that were able to set him up and be able to basically say, Bud, you do your thing and free him up, right? He's also playing alongside Cameron Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, TJ Watt, just to name a few. When it comes to the Titans, he's definitely an upgrade for them on Clowney, where Clowney fitted in their system. I'm secretly hopeful the Steelers might be able to do something with Clowney if he goes unsigned going into the season, and depending on what we've got cap-wise, although I don't want him overpaid by anything $2 or $3 million. But I feel like Buddy's going to be out on an island in Tennessee. Bud's going to have got his money, but, I mean, what's going to be expected of him? It's going to be a problem, I think, for them. And yes, I can see him if we've got to get up and play the Titans. I can see him having a massive game against us. Why wouldn't he? He is becoming a proven performer. Sorry, I've got a bloody mozzie flying around. Tried to kill it before the thingo, but didn't get time. There's a bit of slaying there, mozzie and thingo. Anyway, back on track. I do think that he'll have a decent season for the Titans, but it's not going to match the season he had last year for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Rightio. Now, the third question, will Bud Dupre be a Hall of Fame? And if he is in the Hall of Fame, will he be a Steeler or will he be a Titan? What do you reckon?
Oh, this is a good question. I think if he went in, I think he'd be a Steeler. I think we talked about this a few shows ago where we were basically saying, I think if you're going to go into the Hall of Fame, you kind of want to go in as a Pittsburgh Steeler. I mean, you even saw that with Kevin Green as well. Look, he's got 40 sacks in his career to date. He's been in the league, 6 seasons. Oh, it's going to be a hard one. I think he's going to need a Super Bowl or an AFC Championship to be.
Here's a bonus question for you: will Bud Dupre ever win defensive MVP?
No.
Nah, never.
No,
so
never.
All the other guys on his way.
Yeah.
All right. So we're just going to show Bud the door and hopefully he doesn't beat us in the playoffs.
Yep.
Is that pretty much how we're going? Hey, that's funny though. I'm good. I'm glad we got him. I'm glad we got him.
Yeah, and he, like I said with Juju potentially, Bud could come. Bud's the sort of guy. Let him do 2 or 3 years there. They've paid him the guaranteed money, and then if we need depth, he could be someone we pull back in. Let them have paid all the money. I've got to go in the ins and outs of his contract again. But he's not someone that might be gone from the Steelers forever. Late in his career, you might see a 1 or 2 seasons from him or what have you. So I don't want to shut the door on Bud. I just don't think that. Yeah, good luck to him in Tennessee.
And I don't mind him going to Tennessee. I don't really, in the football world, in my perspective, I don't really hate Tennessee that much. There are a lot of other teams who I dislike more than Tennessee. I kind of enjoy the bit of the AFC South down there. Now with the Jaguars getting Lawrence, it's going to be very interesting. So, yeah, let's move on to our second player and see how we get. Here's a good one. We've got number 9, the Wizard of Boz. What do you reckon about Bozzy? How'd 2020 go?
Have we not had him before?
I don't think so.
Really?
Have we?
Interesting. I don't know. I feel like we have. I feel like because what I'm about to say, I've said before. Maybe I said on War Room when I talked about extending him. But what I'm going to say is he had a good year last year after the previous year being, a bit crap. He kicked that career long in field goals. I think he missed like 2 field goals and it was 1 extra point. I can pull that up, but he had a good year. That's right. I did say it on War Room. The thing about Chris Boswell that people have got to remember is this year he's playing on slightly higher contract than the franchise tag of the position, which is like, I think he's a couple $100,000 over. It might be $300,000 over. So we just got to remember that, he made 19 from 20 when it came to field goals. That was pretty good there. And he made 34 from 38 extra points. So, good season from Chris Boswell.
Yeah, I agree. I'm all in on the Wizard of Boz. I reckon he's a great kicker. He had a really bad year in 2019, I believe it was. Missed a few that he should have got. He only missed, I think, 1 kicker last year. Actually, we may have talked about this before. Maybe it was at the very start of the segment. I'm not too sure.
I've already talked about this before.
All right. What about his future? Just quickly on his future and then the Hall of Fame, and I'll go to the next one.
He's got to play well year in, year out now at that contract number. He's gonna have a long career. He could be a Hall of Fame, sort of like kicker if he can stay healthy, and he needs another decade to probably do it. I don't necessarily think that decade will be on the Pittsburgh Steelers though. He's going to start costing too much money for us.
I just kind of like that. I think that hopefully he's our guy. How many more years does he have in his contract, Matty?
He has, I believe, 2? It was 2. Yeah. See, because this is where I got so he signed through 2022, so he's got this year and next year. But this is where and Dave and I got into a little bit on the Slack channel of this a couple of weeks back, but Steelers don't, and I think I've talked about this briefly on the show before, Steelers don't do extensions with players beyond 1 year. And it might be a millennial thing, it's been argued that, fine. I think it's good business to extend people mid-contracts because you can actually save potentially money over the length of their time if you want them to stay a Steeler. Chris Boswell's the sort of guy I'd do it with, and at the position I'd sort of do it with. The pandemic has created a different situation. In short, I just believe he's someone you could do it with just like you could Tuitt, lock up the position for a while. And I agree with George Teston, Boswell's money. And this is the other thing about Boswell, right? We'll he can kick a 60-yard plus field goal. And, obviously Boswell got that 59-yard one. Boswell kicks field goals at Heinz Field into the wind. It requires a certain boot to do that. We saw that last year when he was injured. Matthew Wright came in, and they wouldn't even back him from 30. It was 35 out or 38 out. And you're sitting there going, this is ridiculous. If you can't kick 38 out, what are you doing in the NFL? But it is a lot harder at Heinz Field. So I think we've got to be careful there on Boswell, because if you know that you're going to make 90% plus, 95% plus of your field goals and your extra points, or 95% of your extra points, 90% of your field goals, and you're playing 8+ games at high, or now, some years it'll be 9+. Hopefully it's 9+ anyway because of playoffs and home field advantage. That becomes a really big thing with the power of his boot. So he's just got to stay healthy for me.
who's that bloke at the Ravens? Is it Justin Tucker?
Yeah, it's Tucker. Yeah.
You know, I looked up. I could be very wrong because I look up these stats and I could be from a different kind of site. But I looked up a stat. I'm pretty sure Boswell has as good at accuracy or close to as good at accuracy as Justin Tucker over his career. I think he's along the lines of like 94% or maybe like 90%. So we know Tucker is one of the great kickers of the NFL, and he's everywhere. The analysts talk about him like he's the almighty. So I don't understand. I understand why. Like I think for now with Boswell, I think Boswell is our guy. We can't lose him. I don't really see anyone too much better than him. He goes in there, does his job, doesn't miss too many kicks. Long as he does that, like someone said in the live chat to you, like will kickers go in the Hall of Fame? Yeah, it's very hard to get in. He might have to win a few Super Bowls or do something crazy and fantastic, or have a really high percentage. Same time though, Tucker or Adam Vinatieri, they have a potential chance to go into the Hall of Fame.
Vinatieri's got to go in, surely.
Well, he's been playing for about 25 years, hasn't he? So longevity-wise, he's gonna go in. All right, do we want to go into our third one before we hit the break? And
let's do third one really quickly. I'm just pulling up the stats for you on the Chris Boswell side versus Justin Tucker, because Chris Boswell has 88% from field goal, 94% from an extra point, and if the website would actually load, I'd be able to tell you Justin Tucker there.
All right, so let's put the next one.
Yeah, let's go.
So we got number 10. Do we have a number 10? I don't think we have a number 10.
No.
Top of my head. So. All right, we'll do the next one. 27. This is interesting. That's Marcus Allen, isn't it?
Not Marcus Allen.
Is that correct, or is that number wrong?
Yeah, 27 is Marcus Allen.
Yeah, let's talk about Marcus Allen.
I can also confirm for you that Justin Tucker is still ahead of Chris Boswell. Fair
enough. What are your thoughts, or quickly before you go to the break, what are your thoughts on Allen in 2020?
Allen in 2020 obviously moved over across to the linebacker position. I think it's interesting now you've got someone like a Miles Killebrew coming in. I think Marcus Allen is someone I think they want to see develop. He's going to have to show up in camp because no doubt they might look at what they can do with other safeties and convert. I think the same thing with Anton Brooks Jr. You can get younger there. I think he's actually a bit slow for a strong safety. But I can see him in that hybrid sort of role that Marcus Allen runs. I don't think Allen qualifies for the practice squad this year either, which I think will be a problem for him in staying on the Steelers roster. I don't know. I feel like this is one of those ones where because he was a pick in the draft and he had so much promise and he was known to the Steelers, and it's like a bit like that Bud piece. It's like all that Daniel McCullers piece. Can you believe we've not talked about Big Dan and his naked photos of the coaching staff for almost a season? But I think it's one of those things where we don't want to kind of admit defeat on it for me. But that's just my opinion.
He's a part of the team, but what is he really doing? And I think he's got some good tackling skills, but then what else is he really? Is he? I don't know. He's just part of the team and just part of the outfit. He's not like that really big special player like a Watt or someone like that in our team. I think we're going to both agree on. I'll pass it back to you. He won't be in the Hall of Fame. He might just be a guy for the Steelers.
Mate, he's got Buckley's, none, zero. Forget it. Let's go to part 2. But Steelers fans, that wraps up part 1 of this week's episode. If you're on the audio side, flick over to part 2. We're going to talk everything sling and the slang as we always like to do. We're going to talk draft. We're going to take Q&A. This has been an awesome part 1. We'll be back with you shortly. For those of you on the live side, stay with us. And we're back on Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matt Peverell, and I'm joined by my co-host, as always, Marky D. How you doing? We're halfway through the show. It just seems to fly by. I'm excited for this week's Sling and the Slang, mate.
Yeah, I'm doing great. But firstly, what if Marcus Allen listens to the show? You've just made him more motivated to go to the Hall of Fame.
He can come on the show. He can come on the show. We'll have an open debate. I challenge you to open debate.
I'd be happy to talk to any Steeler, to be honest. Like they're playing the game. They're running the ball. I'm just talking about it. But yeah, wish him more luck, whatever he does. But
Mate, it'd be a more entertaining debate than Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden. I'm not going to get political, but like, come on. Like, no one listens to those two. You'd rather listen to Matty P and Marcus Allen go at it as to whether
I'd sign up for that because I think, I think it's a big thing when the Steelers players and as fans and we have our perspective, but they actually play the game. So when they might take things into their heart and go, I get offended by that. But in reality, they're the one running the rock, and they understand that they're really good or they're really bad. There's probably players out there that would tell you that I played terrible today,
But you do.
E.g. Mark Sanchez.
But you do. Like being honest about it. Like even when you're doing high school, sports or athletics or whatever, you know when you played well or not. You know when you played well or not. So. Yeah, that's right. Boom, boom, Shazak. I did pull that up. I just was conscious that we move over to the part one side, but appreciate you bringing that up there for all listeners. So basically, boom, basically said that Justin Tucker is number 1 with 90% from field goal percentage, and Boswell is number 4 all time with 87.9%. So a few percentage changes there, but Tucker's had a couple more years in the league as well, I think. But look, let's move on. As we always like to say, just as Big Ben likes to sling the rock, and he's back slinging the rock again in 2021. We like to sling the slang. We like to talk Aussies, everything Aussie slang, terminology, what happens down under. We've done a lot of different things with those over the last few weeks, but we're going to get back to the raw slang today. Marky D, what do you got for us?
All right, so firstly, I'm going to bring up Steelers Pittsburgh comment here. And I'm sorry, Steelers Pittsburgh, but this one's going to really throw you for a laugh here. This one might do your head in. He says, at least he wouldn't need an interpreter. I think he's saying us, maybe more me. My word of the week for sling and slang is, Matty, we have a sport here in Australia called the AFL, or the Australian Football League. Yeah. Now, we were in the NFL. We wear jerseys, right? Pittsburgh Steelers jerseys. All the fan buys them. What do you think they wear in the AFL?
They wear a Guernsey.
They wear a Guernsey. Where does that come from, and why? Why is it called a Guernsey?
I reckon there was some Aussie, and respect to him, because reading and writing it can be a tough one for people out there. I reckon someone just read it once and went and just called it a Guernsey. I just reckon someone just said Guernsey by mistake. It's like when I said sackle, in one of our first live things, right? I meant tackle for a loss and sack. I was thinking both things in my head. I said sackle. It stuck. I think I've just said boom, boom instead of booing, boom, or whatever it is, and then boing, boom, and now he's going to be called boom, boom. Sometimes you just say something, it sticks. That's what I reckon it was.
Yeah, I just think it's really funny because the AFL, and I looked it up, I'm not an AFL supporter. I don't think you are either because we're in New South Wales, more of a down south Victoria thing. But the AFL started in 1855 or something like that, or whatever it was, like back in the day.
So, do you want a fun fact, right? So, when I did my uni degree, I specialized in sport and the law. Did you know that the real football globally is actually AFL because it was the first registered football league code? So around the world, so even football with soccer, the first registered. Now, yes, soccer existed, but the first registered league at the time, and from everything I could pull up when I went back and looked at the incorporation of sport, was actually the AFL.
And was that not, was that 1855 or something?
Yeah, it was pretty early 1800s.
Around that time, there was the guys with the mustaches and the old hats and the black and white photos, and they played the game of AFL. It's been going for so many years. I don't think they wore Guernseys back then, but I just think maybe as an American listener, Guernsey just sounds super funny, doesn't it? Even as an Australian listener, that's just why do we call them that? What's your word this week?
so I've got one which I don't know. I actually don't know if it's slang or not. I just think it's a word that we use a lot, so I wanted to bring it up. I've actually got two because I thought about Chase Claypool this week in the bar, right? So I thought he got up to a few shenanigans, as we like to say down under, a few shenanigans. So it just means when you get up to a bit of mischief or what have you. I think that's a pretty much it's a pretty universal word, I think, if you look it up, that we like to just say a bit of shenanigans down under. And then the other one, because I was talking to Bad on the phone yesterday, and he said He said something like, I don't mean to kick you in the balls or something like that. And I said, oh, yeah, the Jats Crackers. And he went, the what? And I was like, the Jats Crackers. You know what the Jats Crackers are? So, if you cop a knock to the male genitalia region, it was once seen on live sport in Australia, and they went, oh, he got hit in the Jats Crackers. He got hit in his nuts. And Jats Crackers, literally, if you Google them, they're just this normal, like, average biscuit that you put a block of cheese on or a bit of cabanossi or something like that at a party, whatever. The brand is Jats, and they're a cracker, and it just stuck, and we call it the Jats Crackers. So, you cop a knock to the Jats Crackers.
That's one thing as well. With a lot of things in Australia, we call a lot of things just by their brand. So we call it like Jats, like that's, or do you want, that means you're just going to have that. But we don't really say, do you want some crackers? We just call it what it is. Like with Coke, like we say, maybe in America, do you want a soda? Do you want a pop? We like, do you want a Coke? And that could mean anything.
But the biggest one, the biggest one that I find that with when I'm in the States is Band-Aid, right? So they say, oh, do you have like a plaster or whatever? We just say Band-Aid. Like even if you're going to buy a different brand, and even I buy the Elastoplast ones that aren't even Band-Aid, like they're not even brand name. But like, I guess it's like with Americans with Kleenex though. Like you don't say, can I have a tissue or whatever? You say, can I have a Kleenex?
Yeah, it's just super funny. Like a few shows ago I did with the suburbs, and we called one of our major shopping centers the suburb, and it's never called what it is. No one in the entire world of the Central Coast calls the Westfield Shopping Centre Westfield Shopping Centre. They call it Tuggerah, which is the suburb. And you're going, are you going to go to Tuggerah? And you're like, yeah, sure, I'm going to go get some to eat.
But that's interesting, Mark, because if whilst that's the case for you guys up there, when I lived in different parts of Sydney and there've been the different Westfields, like you might say, oh, I'm going up to Westfield, and people just assume because of the area you're in, then they do automatically know which Westfield you're going to. It's not like it's like I'm going to Miranda Westfield or I'm going to Chatswood Westfield or whatever it is. I'm just going to Westfield. And actually, because there's Westfields in the United States as well, I think most people would be surprised to know that Westfield started down under by the Frank Lowy family, who are big funders of soccer in Australia. And it actually started as a corner store in inner Sydney like 70 years ago. It's a pretty fun fact that then and it's been sold off and they've acquired companies and whatever. And now they're pretty much sold all of it. So all the Westfields in the United States and I think the UK are all a different group now. But yeah, pretty fun fact that Westfields globally started. Westfield started as a corner store in Sydney like 70 years ago.
So it started here, and I guarantee the one in Tuggerah is the only one in the world that is not pronounced Westfield. Anyway, no one on the coast here says I'm going to Westfield today. They wouldn't come out of their mouth. It'd be harder to say the Bungles are going to win a Super Bowl than it would be to say that.
Well, that's a pretty good sling in the slang segment. I'm happy with that one. I'm feeling like we're getting our Aussie on. All right, let's move on to the next part of 2 for this week's show. Updated Steelers draft needs. As we talked about earlier, and it feeds into this theme of expecting a different 2021. I think when we talk about those 13 players, the Steelers draft needs are changing to a degree. Mark, the first thing I want to bring up was Michael Beck's got an article right now up on behindthesteelcurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, we're on the YouTube and audio side of behindthesteelcurtain.com, where he's suggesting, and I don't disagree, it could happen, that the Steelers can wait to draft a running back till round 2. Now, right now, we look at the top running backs on the board. You're looking at Najee Harris. You're looking at Travis Etienne. You're looking at Javonte Williams. And then there's probably a bit of a gap after that in terms of the next guys. You might be a Gainwell, a Jamar Jefferson, those sorts of guys. Do you think, though, Mark, we can really wait if running back is where they want to go? And considering Art Rooney's comments this week, the importance of the running back, for the Matt Canada offense, no matter what that looks like, yes. And I think the thing we've got to think about is James Conner could be brought back on the cheap because there's clearly no market for him. Do you really think we can wait till pick 55 to go get the future of the running back position for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Short answer. And I've changed my mind a little bit over the last... Actually, these podcasts helped me change my mind, which is good. Yes, I think they can. Because I know that now we've lost a few people on defense. What about we went in and we got the Steelers got a defensive playmaker, and he's going to change the game. There's still defense to be played on the football field. Now, if he can change the game and be an immediate impact, we can get someone who can still run the ball on the other side and have a shorter field. I know we all want that flashy player at running back, but if we brought someone in, middle linebacker help to help out that defense even more. I'm not saying draft a corner. I'm saying someone up front, someone who can really affect the line, who can affect the quarterback. That kind of guy that can help our defense because we have lost a lot of key players, improve it. Then yeah, sure, wait to get it to get a running back. But if you know your guy at running back, and he's going to be your guy for the next four years, and he's going to hopefully run the ball further than 3 yards and has a bit of ticket to him, has a bit of heart, can run behind this O-line, go and get him. But yeah, I'm definitely not a draft expert. Even putting them into the Steelers' shoes. Imagine trying to figure out, imagine if you're a boss and you're trying to hire a team, but also at the same time, 31 other teams are trying to hire the same people, and they would go. It must be it's such a crazy experience. That's why it's so enjoyable to watch, because when draft people, or when they get drafted, you're like, oh, I thought he was going to go at 16. The next minute, you're like, it changes everything. So I trust the organization to do what they want to do. Did it with Claypool last year, with Highsmith as well, and even Dotson to a certain extent. Last year's draft, when you really look at it, there's some key players in there. McFarland too. McFarland, if he has a good year this year, that's going to be one of the best drafts we've had in a long time.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I go back to something that James Galway, who's in the live chat, said much earlier in the show, and I wrote it down because I wanted to bring it up. And it's pretty hard to sometimes bring up some of the live chats once we get through, because they get rolling and there's always different debates and conversations going on, which is awesome when you're in the live chat. And it's how Mark and I started out in terms of the BTSC journey. And he sort of said, we just need a running back that can actually allow confidence when you're running, 3rd and 1. On 3rd and 1, what if the Steelers ran it? It would be a miracle. If
Who was this guy? Who is he in the live chat? Or
James Galway here.
James mate. Mate, definitely. Matty, you can go on with this, but we need that. We need the fullback to push up, and I don't even know. There's something.
So this is the one guy that for me, and we're going to move into Q&A, so get your questions ready. So within the next couple of minutes, we're going to move full into Q&A. We want you to fire them in thick and fast and want to get through as many as possible. I think to close this part off about a running back, I'm open to them getting a running back now in round 1. If you 100% are confident, and people go, well, every draft pick, you're 100% confident. The Steelers could not have been 100% confident in Arnie Burns or Terrell Edmonds, pure and simple, because the guys that they wanted to draft got picked earlier. But if Travis Etienne or even Javonte Williams, you think that they're the next guy, get them purely so that you can have that 5th-year option at the running back position, right? You just close it out. You go, right, for the next 5 years, you're going to predominantly be the guy. But if I'm really going to wait till round 2, Javonte Williams ain't going to be there. I promise you. Javonte Williams ain't going to be there at 55. You're going to have to trade up to get him. So I really like the idea of Trey Sermon out of, I think he's Ohio State. I think he's someone that will get drafted somewhere in that early 3rd, late 2nd, potentially even later, mid-3rd, that will then prove to be one of the top 3 or 4 over the course of their career. So that's where I'd like to see them go. I just think it's going to be really interesting. I think center is still a priority, but as I say, I think you can fill that with experience. It then comes down to tackle and inside linebacker. There's a few different options there. But I'm a big fan of Cameron McGrone out of Michigan, who's young. He's 21, not a lot of experience, but if you go get him in the late 3rd, early 4th, and the inside linebacker position, I think that will help Devin Bush. So I don't necessarily think you need to get that Zaven Collins or that Nick Bolton at pick 24, but that's how I'm feeling at the moment. But yeah, let's open up some Q&A from the live chat, because I really want to get into lots of that. So bring us your questions.
Just before we get into questions, but guys, shoot out the questions now. But just to end on that, I would like to see with the running back some competitive vibes in that back room. I want to see 2 people who really want to go for the number 1 spot and who want to carry this team and be a true Pittsburgh Steeler. That competition, that fiery competition, is going to fire up our offense. So if it is Snell with a new guy coming in from the draft, those 2 blokes got to fire up and fight for number 1. That's what I want to see. I want to see 2 big dogs go for it.
So Portner on the YouTube side says, why are there no players from the NRL in the NFL International Pathway Program for 2021? There are 2 Austrians, 0 Australians. Maybe BTSC should have a Hans and Franz show from Salzburg. Hans and Franz? No, I don't know who would get to do that one.
Our bag's being Hans.
I'll be Franz. That's an awful accent. But interestingly, Mark and my team in the NRL, the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles, go the mighty Sea Eagles, 0 from 3 now, probably going to get the wooden spoon for the first time. That's when you come last. And they've got a player on their squad. Paseka. I think it's Daniel Paseka. Anyway, Paseka actually got offered a futures contract from the Colts last year during the pandemic. And his wife was pregnant at the time, or his partner was pregnant at the time. So he chose not to take it. And the Steelers offered him, the Steelers, they should have offered him a futures contract, but the Manly Sea Eagles offered him a couple more years worth of deal there. And he didn't want to pass that up with his pregnant partner. So that could have been a guy through the pathway program. But yeah, it is interesting because we know it's growing in popularity down under.
But Matty, let's backtrack a little bit. Could we just appreciate that? That must be comment of the week.
That is probably
really
the comment of the week.
That was pretty. Port Naqueba, you've done your job. You've made 2 Aussies laugh. That was really funny. I don't know where you pulled that from, but yeah, our Manly Sea Eagles are 0 and 3. We've never had the wooden spoon. I don't think we'll get it. We just got to.
We've never had it. I don't think we'll get it.
I don't know what they're going through, but it's not Manly Sea Eagles talk, which it almost could be. But yeah, Port Naqueba for my liking. I'm actually creating a lot of big boards now with all different power rankings, but Portner, you've got comment of the week, 100%.
Mark's just creating awards. Everyone gets it. It's Oprah. You get an award, and you get an award. But no, it is an awesome comment. I'm not trying to take away from that. Big plus, awesome stuff. 1983 on YouTube says the big plus on Javonte over Harris's age, less wear and tear. Completely agree. This is why they need to do something in terms of the NCAA, in terms of compensating RBs with how much they put their bodies through at the college level. However, Harris has proven he can carry the load. Javonte split carries. I mean, for me, Mark, I'm on the Javonte side of things. I know Etienne would be awesome in a Canada offense from seeing what guys like Jeffrey Benedict and KT Smith have put together. I just think Javonte with that run, like within the passing game as well, I just think the less wear and tear. I do think you do have to split carries, even if you do have a bell cow under this system. I don't know. For me, it's Javonte, but in terms of these 3. But how about you?
Let me just Google and see what Adam Schefter says. I don't know, dude. I have no idea. I honestly have no idea about the drafts. I just like to.
But would you prefer a running back that's a bit younger, a bit less proven, versus a player that's like done heaps at the collegiate level, bit of wear and tear? Like, would you prefer? It's like. I guess it's kind of like, do you want to get a Saquon Barkley who then cops a few hits and then he's out injured? Or do you want a guy that's going to like come on and do his thing and do, that sort of thing, like a Jonathan Taylor, I guess, from the Colts or someone like that? I know they're not comparison play for play, but just for an example.
I want to see someone who's a running back who wants to learn, who knows that they are a rookie. They're not the best thing. They may be fast, they may have a good head on their shoulders, but they go into that Steelers team and they appreciate what the culture is and they want to make the Steelers better, but they also know their rank and they know where they are. They're not straight away number 1. They're not the best thing since sliced bread. They go into that locker room. They're trying to, they're meeting Cam, they're meeting Big Ben, saying hello to all those guys, and they just want to do their part. And if their part is for that year getting 300 or 400 yards and that's their goal, and a team goal for the Super Bowl, but if their individual goals is to get a touchdown or to get things like that, improvement, because we all know with the Steelers, with the running game, like you said it with the colleges, they do bash their heads for 3 or 4 years, but you can't just go all out, because I reckon Saquon Barkley did get roughed up a fair bit in the New York Giants, and you see it with a lot of blokes like Todd Gurley and a few of those other guys. They just get run into walls. So yeah, I think you just got to know your place and run the ball you best you can, and just follow your coaches and don't go with a big head of steam straight away and say you're going to be the best thing ever, basically.
Boing boom Shizak. Yeah, I probably got that right that time. In the first 5 picks to the Steelers lean offense. This is a great question, actually. Yeah. This is an awesome question. Portland might have got the fun question. I do like this from a draft question. And how are they going to do it? Are they going to go 3 and 2 or are they going to go 4 and 1? I think they're going to try and split it. I think they're probably going to go 3-2 offensive, just given what they need on the offensive line and RB. If there's a great wide receiver sitting there, it makes sense. I can't see them going 4-1 on offense. I could see them going 4-1 on defense if there's a bunch of guys that are left because everyone's just picking off the quarterbacks, the great running, the 3 or 4 great running backs, the 5 to 7 great wide receivers, and the top sort of 6 tackles or guards and centers. I could see it going on the defensive side, but I think that's like a 5% out of 100 kind of thing. What about you, Mark?
100%. I'm going another even split as well. I right now, like I said before, I wanted to see an O-line, but we've also bought a lot of free agents for the O-line. I'm a defensive guy. I'm wearing Troy. I watched his highlights the other day. I would like to see another defensive guy be a playmaker and really take ownership of that team and help big Devin Bush there. So, yeah, someone like that will maybe lean more on the defense. But we do need help on the offense as well, get the running backs and maybe some O-line guys there. We got Snowman here too, Matty. You want to?
Yeah, I was going to bring up Snowman. There we go in order, but you go, Mark.
So Snowman here, $5, and I think the dollar's coming back up, so we're almost about. It might be worth about $6 in Australia or something similar. Do the Steelers draft a center? Big question. Or do we sign a free agent? This is all you, Matty. What do you think?
I think you've kind of got the answer in what they've done so far. I know someone responded to me in the live chat before and sort of said they're going to wait to sign a center till the season gets closer after the preseason. There's this part of me, the cynic in me says with the 24th pick, the Steelers select Landon Dickerson and we have this another project at center. I'll be furious if they do that. I don't like the injury history there. I agree with Jeff Hartman. I think that there's not many centigrade. There's not many, top 2 round centigrades out there. And there for me, you're overreaching. I really like the play of Trey Hill out there from, I think it's Georgia. He can play center, guard. I'd love to see what that looks like. We turned Demoni Dawson from a guard into a center. I just don't think, I think there's other, in the first and second round, you've got to bring them players that could start right away. Or ready to go if something happens. There's some talent. Always think about it. It goes back to what I said in one of the first cat rooms before it became war room. You've got to be fearful when others are being greedy and be greedy when others are being fearful. I think here where everyone's distracted, as I said just before, drafting the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, the tackles, who can we go out and pick? And that's why I feel like we're leaning toward a Zaven Collins or someone like that at 24 over a center. I just don't think Creed Humphrey and Dickerson are going to be sitting there at 55. I've even got questions whether Dickerson's worth a 55 pick. So I think if they're going to do anything, it probably is going to be a free agent, but it will be a while. I think that was the right comment. And forgive me for not remembering who brought that up. But you can't go into the season with BJ Finney as your starting center. Sorry. Awesome. Moving down the list. But don't we need a true number 1 right now that is proven? I'm going to suggest that that's from Awesome Stuff 1983 there. I'm thinking he means right now a running back. That is an interesting point there in terms of whether we draft that more, prospect potential over someone like a Najee Harris. I just worry that we're not going to have the gaps for Harris, and I do worry that necessarily he's going to want to do more running than doing things in the passing game. But that's just the way I see it. Donald Nolan, what round do you see the Steelers drafting CB? Thoughts on Asante Samuel or JC Horn? I might go first on this one. Asante Samuel is a real athlete. I definitely think the Steelers could be drafting Asante Samuel in round 3. The first, I think it was only, they didn't get the compensatory one in the round 3, but I think he's someone you could easily see them draft in round 3. If JC Horn's available there at 24, anytime if the Steelers draft a cornerback in round 1, everyone's going to criticize it. But after seeing his pro day and seeing some of the analysis that came out of that, JC Horn is a real athlete. And he can do some stuff there. He's plug and play, ready to go. That's pretty awesome. However, if you look at with Steven Nelson leaving and then Cameron Sutton stepping up and being 85% of the player at like 23% of the cost or whatever it was. It was brought up on the it was the preview this week with Dave, Jeff, and Bad. I like the idea of bringing in Asante Samuel because you can give him time to learn and fit into his role, and you don't have to spend a round 1 draft pick on him. But that's just how I'm feeling at the moment. But Mark, in your side, would you prefer the Steelers to draft, even if he's a top cornerback, would you prefer the cornerback to be drafted in round 1 or round 3?
Oh, look at that, Matty. It's almost gone an hour. I think we're almost out of time.
We've got 5 minutes, mate.
I might have to delay this question. I'm not too sure if I can answer. Look, once again, guys, I am not a draft guy. I don't know anything about the draft. I go for what Matty says. I go for what the guys say from BTSC. So go follow those guys online and through YouTube. I almost feel like for me being the draft guy right now, I'm the second quarterback, the stringer that's sitting there and pretending to call plays and helping out Big Ben. That's the guy that I'm playing right now. Like I said, if they draft a corner, it's got to be later though. It can't be up front. I know it can't be a guy like Huddy Burns or someone like that. Yeah, so for me and my thoughts, really, I'm just the guy sitting back and just appreciating what Matty's doing and all through the war room and the stuff like that. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
But would you rather a guy that could start at cornerback, given all the changes at cornerback now with Hilton and Nelson leaving, or would you rather a guy that can work his way into the lineup that might be potentially a bit bigger, offer a bit more once he gets used to the NFL style of play?
Not at corner. I don't think you see a guy at corner coming in straight away and being fully dominant, or actually with the Steelers anyway. I would prefer to him to sit back, and the other guys have been 2 or 3 years into the league now at corner. We got James, is it Pierre?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got him there. We did lose Nelson, so yeah. I don't think, because if you're going to draft someone like that, they've got to be in the top, have to be a special talent, right, to be in maybe the top 15 to be a starter. So I don't think if you draft somebody, you're going to put him in the starter at the back end at all.
And then Awesome Stuff 1983 brings up, if you are the GM, what position do you address first? Mark, what do you want to see?
Well, mine's starting to flip. So I was on the O-line, but I really like the idea of the defense. And I think it's going to be someone to fill that role where Vince Williams was, and to someone to help out Bush. Like, we need someone who can have a double trouble in that middle zone of the Steelers defense. And if he's an athletic middle linebacker to help out Bush, and TJ's going to go off and Hayward's going to go off, someone who's sitting there, and I know it's Collins has been brought up a few times, but there could be another bloke that they're interested in. And whoever can help that defense out there is going to help the Steelers' whole team. And maybe we can get that running back a bit after. Like you said, the other blokes, I can't remember who you said, to be honest. But a few of those blokes at running back, we can get them in the later rounds and focus on the defense.
Yeah, I think this is a hard one, Awesome Stuff, because it depends whether you want to trade up and get someone as well. If Samuel Cosme from the Texas Longhorns, and I'm not just saying that as a Longhorns fan, is available sitting there at 24, I think he's a hard one to pass up. I think you can plug and play straight away with him. I mean, if I was the GM, and I it's hard because we don't know what Big Ben's doing there. I'd be trading, quite honestly, I'd be going right up there, and I'd be trying to get Rashawn Slater or over Penei Sewell. Rashawn Slater can play guard, he can play tackle. He's, an incredible player there. Probably a little bit behind still Wirfs and Becton from last year, but he can play. I'd go up to him because you're going to shore up that offensive line for the next 5 years, no matter who you bring in, right? And then imagine that sort of tackle. You can have Mason standing back there, but I know that sounds like heresy, but so I think it's an interesting question. If there's, as I said, if they're picking at 24, if Cosme is available, go get Cosme. I think he's a bit more proven for what I like out of him, out of that tackle position. But agree with Mark. If you can go get a Zaven Collins there and improve the defense, then fantastic. I want to bring up Donald Nolan's other points there. I'd be happy to see this. He says he'd be happy to see Steelers move up to get Samuel. His dad was legit. He's got a leg up on other CBs. I agree with you, Donald. And that was some of the analysis coming out of his pro day. But I think you can move up if you see cornerbacks start to be picked off. I think you can move up in round 2. I don't think you need to use a round 1 on him. And that feeds into what Mark Firestorm says on the YouTube side in the live chat. All the best corners will be gone by pick 24. with Caleb Fairley going through the extra surgery, that might not necessarily be the case, but I think it is quite probable at the same time. But I think the draft's going to throw some surprises. I think a lot of the mock drafts we're seeing across NFL.com, other networks, other pundit sites are all starting to look very similar in the terms of these top 30-ish players and in terms of who they're going to pick, or top 35. And there's guys that fall in and out of that first round. The draft always throws up some surprises. There were trades this week. There could be more trades coming. That'll really, I think, wait for the next sort of get through Easter, and I think you'll start to see some boards move around a little bit there as well. Trey Briggs, should Pitt trade up in the first to draft Micah Parsons out of Penn State to pair with Bush? That's a great question on the Facebook side. Look, if he gets to pick number 12, and I've got to go through the orders then and redo now that trade's happened and look at who was going to pick where. But if you say at pick 12, Micah Parsons not done yet, he hasn't been picked yet. Gosh, imagine trading up to get a guy like that, a pure athlete. You can stick him anywhere in that linebacking position. That could be incredible. As I said, I don't know. You're going to have to use capital from next year. Then you are relying on us getting the compensatory picks. If a team wants picks from this year, I won't do it because we need to fill a lot of different spots. Unless you're talking like a 6th round, and that's not going to help you in terms of the trade formula. Mark, is this how you'd be feeling from HHH? HHH says, I'd be happy with the draft at the end of the day if there are at least 4 quality starters by the end of the season. That's a big, we only had 3 last year, so that's a big pass mark for Kevin Colbert, Omar Khan, and Mike Tomlin.
100%, and even in the fan perspective of me as well, is if you get a guy with a cool name, then you got a cool jersey. So I'm wearing Paul Army right now. Everyone knows that name because he's a crazy once-in-a-lifetime player. And I think we got him. We traded up him to get. Was he top 10? Well, he was pretty high, wasn't he? We traded for him, didn't we? I can't remember.
Bush 10. No, yeah, we traded up.
For Troy. Did we trade up for Troy?
We did trade up for Troy.
Yeah.
Oh, how many spots was it? I'm drawing a mental blank. It's been too long.
Was it 10 or 12? Anyway,
yeah, it was something like that.
Awesome name, great player. Get a guy like that, and you've got a great jersey for the next. This is the jersey that would never go out of fashion. Everyone on my Steelers Nation Australia page, Troy is just the guy.
Mate, get a guy I got a Mitchell and Ness throwback one.
Yeah. Get a player like him. I wish I could go back in time and watch him from. I was younger. I didn't really understand football back then, so I only really got to see him around 2008 or 9 was when he started, but that was probably one of his best years as well.
And just to close it out, Donald Nolan, is Sutton a lock for starter at cornerback, or do they draft a cornerback? Do you think it'd be competition between Sutton, Pierre, Lane, and draft pick for starting CB opposite Hayden? From my perspective, yes, I think it is. Then Pierre, I think you're not going to see much of Lane. I think Lane's playing out his rookie contract with him. I don't think he's the future at the Pittsburgh Steelers. He'll probably get picked up by the Browns or the Bengals, given his Ohio background. And yeah, that'll be it for him. I think they've just tried to get a big, fast guy, and it's not really worked. And he doesn't offer you an incredible amount extra on special teams. How about you, Mark?
The key word there is for all those blokes, and what I want to see is the competitive drive. Same with the CB depth. We've got Hayden there. Sutton might be number 2. But James Pierre, he's a guy that, was he undrafted? I think he was undrafted.
Yeah, he was undrafted. Yep.
He's wearing number 42, I think, if that might be correct. And those players or those numbers don't normally make a starting squad. So if he can maybe go for the number 2 spot or make his name worthy for the Steelers, this year I'm just buying in on they need to be competitive and really show the other teams and the media who the Steelers are this year in 2021.
That's exactly it, Mark. That is 100% it. And look, Steelers fans, that wraps up this week's Steelers Touch Down Under. We're working on a guest, which you might have seen on Twitter. We're working on bringing him in for April. His name is Tone Diggs. Pat McAfee show. Awesome guy, massive Steelers fan. We're working on whether we can bring him in. I'm hoping that's possible. He's hoping that's possible from what I can gather from messages as well. Once we know, we'll give you the heads up on that one. But look, there's some awesome content coming out across behind the steel curtain, whether it's across the YouTube side, the audio side, the website. It's got everything you need, whether it's the free agents, the prospects for 2021 for the team, whether it's draft picks. It's going to be a really interesting next couple of weeks, especially as we go through this Easter period. There's some cool. I was on the phone with Bad yesterday as well, just discussing a few things. There's some awesome content coming up through April, May that's a bit different as well. So stay tuned for all of that. Have a great weekend from Matty P and Marky D. Mark, close it out.
Go Steelers.